So Long a Letter by MARIAMA. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA. Chapter 1. Dear Aisetu, I have received your letter. By way of reply, I am beginning this diary, my prop in my distress. Our long association has taught me that confiding in others allays pain. Your presence in my life is by no means fortuitous. Our grandmothers in their compounds were separated by a fence and would exchange messages daily. Our mothers used to argue over who would look after our uncles and aunts. As for us, we wore out wrappers and sandals on the same stony road to the Quranic school. We buried our baby teeth in the same holes and begged our fairy godmothers to restore them to us, more splendid than before. If over the years, and passing through the realities of life, dreams die, I still keep intact my memories, the salt of remembrance. I conjure you up, the past is reborn, along with this procession of emotions. I close my eyes, even tired of feeling, heat and dazzlement, the wood fires, the sharp green mango, bitten into tens, a delicacy of our greedy mouths. I close my eyes, even tired of images, drops of sweat beading your mother's ochre-colored face as she emerges from the kitchen. The procession of young wet girls, chattering on their way back from the springs. We walk the same paths from adolescence to maturity, where the past begins the present. My friend, my friend, my friend. I call on you 3 times. Yesterday you were divorced. Today I am a widow. Modo is dead. How am I to tell you? One does not fix appointments with fate. Fate grabs home at once, when it wants. When it moves in the direction of your desires, it brings you plenitude. But more often than not, it unsettles, crosses you. Then one has to endure. I endured a phone call which disrupted my life. A taxi driver quickly hailed. Fast, fast, faster still. My throat is dry. There is a rigid lump in my chest. Fast, faster still. At last, the hospital. The mixed smell of suppurations and ether. The hospital, distorted faces, a train of tearful people, known and unknown, witnesses to this awful tragedy. A long corridor, which seemed to stretch out endlessly. At the end, a room. In the room, a bed. On the bed, Modo stretched out, cut off from the world of the living by a white sheet in which he is completely enveloped. A trembling hand moves forward and slowly uncovers the body. His hairy chest, at rest forever, is visible through his crumpled blue shirt with thin strips. This face, set in pain and surprise, is indeed his. The bald forehead, the half-open mouth are indeed his. I want to grasp his hand, but someone pulls me away. I can hear Maudu, his doctor friend, explaining to me. A heart attack came on suddenly in his office while he was dictating a letter. The secretary had the presence of mind to call me. Maudu recounts how he arrived too late with the ambulance. I think the doctor, after death, he mimes the massaging of the heart that was undertaken, as well as the futile effort at mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Again, I think, heart massage, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, ridiculous weapons against the divine will. I listen to the words that create around me, a new atmosphere in which I move, a stranger and tormented. Death, the tunnel's passage between 2 opposite walls, one tumultuous, the other still. Where to lie down? Middle age demands dignity. I hold tightly onto my prayer beads. I tell the beast ardently, remaining standing on legs of jelly. My loins beat as to the rhythm of childbirth. Cross sections of my life spring involuntarily from my memory. Grandiose verses from the Quran, noble words of consolation fight for my attention. Joyous miracle of birth, dark miracle of death, between the two, a life, a destiny, says Mauduba. I looked intently at Maudu. He seemed to be taller than usual in his white overall. He seems to me thin. His reddened eyes expressed 40 years of friendship. I admire his noble hands, hands of an absolute delicacy, supple hands used to tracking down illness. Those hands, moved by friendship and rigorous science, could not save his friend. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA, Chapter 2. Murderfall is indeed dead, I said to. The uninterrupted procession of men and women who have learnt of it, the wails and tears all around me, confirm his death. This condition of extreme tension sharpens my suffering and continues till the following day, the day of interment. What a seething crowd of human beings come from all parts of the country where the radio has relayed the news. Women, close relatives, are busy. They must take incense, load the clones, cotton wool to the hospital for the washing of the dead one. The 7 meters of white muslin, the only clothing Muslims allowed for the dead, are carefully placed in the basket. The Zamzam, the miracle water from the holy places of Islam, religiously cared by each family, is not forgotten. Rich dark wrappers are chosen to cover Mudu. My back propped up by cushions, legs stretched out, my head covered with a black wrapper, I follow the comings and goings of people. Across from me, a new winnowing fan, bought for the occasion, receives the first arm. The presence of my co-wife beside me irritates me. She has been installed in my house for the funeral, in accordance with tradition. With each passing hour, her cheeks become more deeply hollow. Are quite ever more rings, those big and beautiful eyes, which open and close on their secrets, perhaps their regrets. At the age of love and freedom from care, this child is dogged by sadness. While the men, in a long irregular file of official and private cars, public buses, lorries, mopeds, accompany Mojo to his last rest, people were for a long time to talk of the crowd which followed the funeral procession. Our sister-in-laws undo our hair. My co-wife and myself are put inside a rough and ready tent made of a wrapper pulled out above our heads and set up for the occasion. While our sister-in-laws are constructing it, the women present, informed of the work in hand, gets up and throws some coins onto the flattering canopy so as to ward off evil spirits. This is the moment dreaded by every Senegalese woman, the moment when she sacrifices her possessions as gifts to a family in-law, and worse still, beyond her possessions, she gives up her personality, her dignity, becoming a thing of service of the man who married her, his grandfather, his grandmother, his father, his mother, his brother, his sister, his uncle, his aunt, his male and female cousins, his friends. Her behavior is conditioned. No sister-in-law will touch the head of any wife who has been stingy, unfaithful, or inhospitable. As for ourselves, we have been deserving, and our sisters-in-law sing a chorus of praises chanted at the top of their voices. Our patience before all trials, the frequency of our gifts find their jurisdiction and reward today. As sisters-in-law, give equal consideration to 30 years and 5 years of married life. With the same ease and the same words, they celebrate 12 maternities and 3. I note with outrage this desire to level out in which Mother's new mother-in-law rejoices. Having washed their hands in a bowl of water placed at the entrance of the house, the men, back from the cemetery, file past the family group around us, the widows. They offered their condolences, punctuated with phrases of the deceased. Modo, friend of the young, as of the old. Modo, the lion-hearted, champion of the oppressed. Modo, at ease as much in a suit as in a kaftan. Modo, good brother, good husband, good Muslim. May God forgive him. May he regret his earthly stay in his heavenly bliss. May the earth rest lightly on him. They are there, his childhood playmates on the football ground, or during bed hands when they use catapults. They are there, his classmates. They are there, his companions in the trade union struggles. The Segal and the Gill come one after the other, pregnant, while skilled hands distribute to the crowd biscuits, sweets, cola nuts, judiciously mixed, the first offerings to heaven for the peaceful repose of a diseased soul. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA, Chapter 3. On the third day, the same comings and going of friends, relatives, the poor, the unknown. The name of the deceased, who was popular, has mobilized a buzzing crowd. Welcome to my house that has been stripped of all that could be stolen, all that could be spoiled. Mats of all sorts are spread out everywhere there is space. Metal chairs, hired for the occasion, take on a blue hue in the sun. Comforting words from the Quran fill the air. Divine words, divine instructions, impressive promises of punishment or joy, exhortation to virtues, warnings against evil, exhortation of humility, of faith. Shivers run through me, my tears flow, and my voice joins weakly in the fervent Amen, which inspires the crowd's ardor at the end of each verse. The smell of lac, cooling in the calabashes, pervades the air. Exciting. Also passed around are large bowls of red or white rice, cooked here or in neighboring houses. Iced fruit juices, water and curd are served in plastic cups. The men's group eat in silence. Perhaps they remember the stiff body, tied up and lowered by their hands into a gaping hole, quickly covered up again. In the woman's corner, nothing but noise, resonant laughter, loud talks, hand claps, strident exclamations. Friends who have not seen each other over a long time hug each other noisily. Some discuss the latest material on the market. Others indicate where they got their woven wrappers from. The latest bits of gossip are exchanged. They laugh heartily and roll their eyes and admire the next person's boo-boo. Her original way of using henna to blacken hands and feet by drawing geometrical figures on them. From time to time, an exasperated manly voice rings out a warning, recalls the purpose of the gathering, a ceremony for the redemption of a soul. The voice is quickly forgotten, and the brouhaha begins all over again, increasing in volume. In the evening comes the most disconcerting part of the Thursday ceremony. More people, more jostling in order to hear and see better. Groups are formed according to relationships, according to blood ties, areas, corporations. Each group displays its own contribution to the cost. In former times, this contribution was made in kind. Millet, livestock, rice, flour, oil, sugar, Milk. Today, it is made conspicuously in banknotes, and no one wants to give less than the other. A disturbing display of inner feeling that cannot be evaluated, now measured in francs. And again, I think how many of the dead will have survived if before organizing such festive funeral ceremonies, the relative or friend had bought a life-saving prescription or paid for hospitalization. The takings are carefully recorded. It is a debt to be repaid in similar circumstances. Mother's relatives open an excise book. Lady mother-in-law, Modos, and her daughter have a notebook. Fatimi, my younger sister, carefully records my takings in a notepad. As I come from a large family in this town, with acquaintances at all levels of society, as I am a school teacher, on friendly terms with the people's parents, and as I have been Modo's companion for 30 years, I receive the greater share of money and many envelopes. The regard shown me raises me in the eyes of the others, and it is Lady Mother-in-law's turn to be annoyed. Newly admitted into the city's bourgeoisie by her daughter's marriage, she too reaps banknotes. As for her silent, haggard child, she remains a stranger in these circles. The sudden calls from her sister-in-laws bring her out of her stupor. They reappear after their deliberation. They have contributed a large sum of 200,000 francs to dressers. Yesterday, they offered us some excellent fiacre to quench our thirst. The Fall family's Griers is proud of her role as go-between, a role handed from mother to daughter. 100,000 francs from the father's side, 100,000 francs from the mother's side. She counts the notes, blue and pink, one by one, shows them round and concludes, I have much to say about you Falls, grandchildren of Damel Madiodio, who have inherited royal blood. But one of you is no more. Today is not a happy day. I weep with you for Modo, whom I used to call bag of rice, for he will frequently give me a sack of rice. Therefore, accept this money, you worthy widows of a worthy man. The share of each widow must be doubled, as must the gift of Modo's grandchildren, represented by the offsprings of all his male and female cousins. Thus, our family in-law take away with them a wad of notes, painstakingly topped, and leave us utterly destitute, we who will need material support. Afterwards comes a procession of old relatives, old acquaintances, griots, goldsmiths, liobes with their honeyed language, the goodbyes following one after the other at an infernal rate are irritating because they are neither simple nor free. They require, depending on the person leaving, sometimes a coin, sometimes a banknote. Gradually, the house empties. The smell of stale sweat and food blend as trails in the air, unpleasant and nauseating. Cola nuts spat out here and there have left red stains. My towels, kept with such painstaking care, are blackened. Oil stains on the walls, balls of crumpled paper. What a balance sheet for a day. My horizon lightened. I see an old woman. Who is she? Where is she from? Bent over, the ends of her boo-boo tied behind her, she empties into a plastic bag the leftovers of red rice. Her smiling face tells of the pleasant day she has just had. She wants to take back proof of this to her family, living perhaps in Wakam, Tiaroye, or Pekine. Standing upright, her eyes meeting my disapproving look, she mutters between teeth, reddened by cola nuts, Lady, death is just as beautiful as life has been. Alas, it's the same story on the 8th and 40th day, when those who have learned belatedly make up for lost time. Light attire showing off slim waistlines, prominent backsides, the new braziers or the ones bought at the second-hand market, chewing sticks, wetted between teeth, white or flowered shawls, heavy smell of incense and of gongo, loud voices, strident laughter, and yet we are told in the Quran that on the third day the dead body swells and fills its tomb. We are told that on the eighth it bursts, and we are also told that on the 40th day it is stripped. What then is the significance of these joyous institutionalized festivities that accompany our prayers for God's mercy? Who has come out of self-interest? Who has come to quench his own thirst? Who has come for the sake of mercy? Who has come so that he may remember? Tonight, Benito, my co-wife, will return to a Sekap villa at last. Phew. The vessels of condolence continue. The sick, those who have journeyed or have merely arrived late, as well as the lazy, come to fulfill what they consider to be a sacred duty. Child naming ceremonies may be missed, but never a funeral. Coins and notes continue to pour on the beckoning fan. Alone, I live in monotony, broken only by purifying baths, the changing of my morning clothing every Monday and Friday. I hope to carry out my duty fully. My heart concurs with the demands of religion, reared since childhood on their strict precepts. I expect not to fail. The walls that limit my horizon for 4 months and 10 days do not bother me. I have enough memories in me to reminisce upon, and these are what I am afraid of, for the smack of bitterness. May their evocation not soil the state of purity in which I must live. Till tomorrow. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA, Chapter 4. I said to my friend, perhaps I am boring you by relating what you already know. I have never observed so much because I have never been so concerned. The family meeting held this morning in my sitting room is at last over. You can easily guess those who were present. Lady Mother-in-law, her brother, her daughter Benito, who is even thinner, old Tamsir, Moda's brother, and the imam from the mosque in his area, Mauduba, my daughter, and her husband Abdul. The miraz commanded by the Quran requires that a dead person be stripped of his most intimate secrets. Thus, is exposed to others what was carefully concealed. These exposures crudely explain a man's life. With consternation, I measure the extent of Moda's betrayal. His abandonment of his first family, myself and my children, was the outcome of the choice of a new life. He rejected us. He mapped out his future without taking our existence into account. His promotion to the rank of technical advisor in the Ministry of Public Works, in exchange for which, according to the spiteful, he checked the trade union revolt, could not control the mire of expenses by which he was engulfed. Dead without a penny saved, acknowledgement of debts, a pile of them, cloth and gold traders, home delivery grocers and butchers, car purchase installments. Hold on, the star attraction of this tripping, the origins of the elegant Sekap villa, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, pink and blue, large sitting room, a large room flat, built at his own expense at the bottom of the second courtyard for Lady Mother-in-law, a furniture from France for his new wife, and furniture constructed by local carpenters for Lady Mother-in-law. This house and its chic contents were acquired by a bank loan granted on mortgage on Villa Fallen, where I live. Although the title deeds of this house bear his name, it is nonetheless our common property, acquired by our joint saving, insult upon injury. Moreover, he continued a monthly payment of 75,000 francs to the Sekap. These payments were to go on for about 10 years before the house will become his. 4 million francs, borrowed with ease, because of his privileged position, which had enabled him to pay for Lady Mother-in-law and her husband to visit Mecca to acquire the titles of Alaja and Alaji, which equally enabled Benito to exchange the Alfa Romeos at the slightest dent. Now, I understand the terrible significance of Modu's abandonment of our joint bank account. He wanted to be financially independent so as to have enough elbow room. And then, having withdrawn Benito from school, he paid her a monthly allowance of 50,000 francs, just like a salary, due to her. The young girl, who was very gifted, wanted to continue her studies, to sit for her baccalaureate, so as to establish his rule. Modu wickedly determined to remove her from the critical and unsparing world of the young. He therefore gave in to all the conditions of the grasping Lady Mother-in-law and even signed a paper committing himself to paying the said amount. Lady Mother-in-law brandished the paper, for she firmly believed that the payments would continue even after Modu's death out of the estate. As for my daughter Daba, she waved about a bailiff affidavit dated the very day of her father's death that listed all the contents of the Sika villa. The list supplied by Lady Mother-in-law and Benito made no mention of certain objects and items of furniture which had mysteriously disappeared or had been fraudulently removed. You know that I am excessively sentimental. I was not at all pleased by this display on either side. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA. Chapter 5. When I stopped yesterday, I probably left you astonished by my disclosures. Was it madness, weakness, irresistible love? What inner confusion led Modu to marry Benito? To overcome my bitterness, I think of human destiny. Each life has its share of heroism, an obscure heroism born of abdication, of renunciation, and acceptance under the merciless whip of fate. I think of all the blind people the world over, moving in darkness. I think of all the paralyzed the world over, dragging themselves about. I think of all the lepers the world over, wasted by their disease, victims of a sad fate which you did not choose. Compared with your lamentations, what is my quarrel? Cruelly motivated with a dead man who no longer had any hold over my destiny. Combining your despair, you could have been avengers and made them tremble. All those who are drunk on their wealth tremble, those upon whom fate has bestowed favors. A heart powerful in its repugnance and revolt, you could have snatched the bread that your hunger craves. Your stoicism has made you not violent or subversive, but true heroes, unknown to the mainstream of history, never upsetting established order, despite your miserable condition. I repeat, beside your visible deformities, what are moral infirmities, from which in any case you are not immune? Thinking of you, I thank God for my eyes, which daily embrace heaven and earth. If today moral fatigue makes my limbs stiff, tomorrow it will leave my body. Then, relieved, my legs will carry me slowly, and I shall again have around me the iodine and the blue of the sea. The star and the white cloud will be mine. The breath of the wind will again refresh my face. I will stretch out, turn around, I will vibrate. Oh, health, live in me. Oh, health. My efforts cannot for long take my mind off my disappointment. I think of the suckling baby, no sooner born than orphaned. I think of the blind, who will never see his child smile. I think of the cross the one-armed man has to bear. I think, but my despair persists, but my rancor remains, but the waves of an immense sadness break in me. Madness or weakness, heartlessness or irresistible love, What inner torment led Mother fall to marry Benito? And to think that I loved this man passionately, to think that I gave him 30 years of my life, to think that 12 times over I carried his child. The addition of a rival to my life was not enough for him. In loving someone else, he burned his past, both morally and materially. He dared to commit such an act of disavowal. And yet, what didn't he do to make me his wife? So Long a Letter by MARIAMA. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA. Chapter 6. Do you remember the morning train that took us for the first time to Ponte Vale, the teachers' training college in Sabokotani? Ponte Vale is a countryside still green from the last rains, a celebration of youth right in the middle of nature. Banjo music in dormitories transformed into dance floors, conversations held along the rows of geraniums or under the thick mango trees. Mode 4. The very moment you bowed before me, asking me to dance, I knew you were the one I was waiting for. Tall and athletically built, of course. Olive-colored skin, due to your distant Moorish blood. No question. Virility and fineness of features harmoniously blended. Once again, no question. But, above all, you knew how to be tender. You could fathom every thought, every desire. You knew many undefinable things which glorified you and sealed our relationship. As we danced, your forehead, hairline already receding, bent over my own. The same happy smile lit up our faces. The pressure of our hand became more tender, more possessive. Everything in me gave in, and our relationship endured the school years and during the holidays, strengthened in me by the discovery of your subtle intelligence, of your embracing sensitivity, of your readiness to help, of your ambition, which suffered no mediocrity. It was this ambition which led you on leaving school to prepare for your own, for the 2 examinations of the baccalaureate. Then you left for France, and according to your letters, you lived there as a recluse, attaching little importance to the glitters that met your regard. But you grasped a deep sense of history that has worked so many wonders, and of a great culture that overwhelmed you. The milky complexion of the woman had no hold on you. Again, quoting from your letters, on the strictly physical plane, the white woman's advantage over the black woman lies in the variety of her color, the abundance, length, and softness of her hair. There are also eyes which can be blue, green, often the color of new honey. You also used to complain of the somberness of the skies, under which no coconut trees waved their tops. You missed the swinging hips of black women walking along the pavement. This gracious, deliberate slowness characteristic of Africa, which charmed your eyes. You were sick at heart at the dog rhythm of the life of the people and the numbing effects of the cold. You will finish by saying that your studies were your staff, your buttress. You will end with a string of endearment and conclude by reassuring me, as you whom I carry within me, you are my protecting black angel. Would I could quickly find you, if only to hold your hand tightly, so that I may forget hunger and thirst and loneliness, and you return in triumph with a degree in law. In spite of your voice and gift of oratory, you preferred obscure work, less well paid but constructive for your country, to the showness of the lawyer. Your achievement did not stop there. Your introduction of your friend, Mauduba, into our circle was to change the life of my best friend Aisetu. I no longer scored my mother's reserve concerning you, for a mother can instinctively feel where her child's happiness lies. I no longer laugh when I think that She found you too handsome, too polished, too perfect for a man. She often spoke of the wide gap between your two upper incisors, the sign of primacy of sensuality in the individual. What didn't she do from then on to separate us? She could see in you only the eternal khaki suits, the uniform of your school. All she remembered of you were your visits, considered too long. You were very idle, she said, therefore, with plenty of time to waste, and you will use the time to stuff my head to the disadvantage of more interesting young people. Because, being the first pioneers of the promotion of African women, there were very few of us. Men would call us scatterbrained, others labeled as devils, but many wanted to possess us. How many dreams did we nourish hopelessly that could have been fulfilled as lasting happiness, and that we abandoned to embrace others? Those that have burst miserably like soap bubbles, leaving us empty-handed. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA, Chapter 7. I said I will never forget a white woman who was the first to desire for us an uncommon destiny. Together, let us recall our school. Green, pink, blue, yellow, a veritable rainbow. Green, blue, and yellow, the colors of the flowers everywhere in the compound. Pink, the color of the dormitories, with the beds impeccably made. Let us hear the walls of our school come to life with the intensity of our study. Let us relive its intoxicating atmosphere at night, while the evening song, our joint prayer, rang out full of hope. The admission policy, which was based on entrance examination for the whole of former French West Africa, was now broken up into autonomous republics, made possible a fruitful blend of different intellects, characters, manners, and customs. Nothing differentiated us apart from specific racial features. The foreign girl from Dahomey and the Malinke one from Guinea, friendships were made that have endured the test of time and distance. We were true sisters, destined for the same mission of emancipation. To lift us out of the bog of tradition, superstition, and custom, to make us appreciate a multitude of civilizations without renouncing our own, to raise our vision of the world, cultivate our personalities, strengthen our qualities, to make up for our inadequacies, to develop universal moral values in us. These were the aims of our admirable headmistress. The word love had a particular resonance in her. She loved us without patronizing us, with our plates either standing on end or bent down, with our loose blouses or wrappers. She knew how to discover and appreciate our qualities. How I think of her! If the memory of her has triumphed over the ingratitude of time, now that flowers no longer smell as sweetly or as strongly as before, now that age and mature reflection have stripped our dreams of their poetic virtue, it is because the path chosen for our training and our blooming has not been all fortuitous. It has accorded with profound choices made by New Africa for the promotion of the black woman. Thus, free from frustrating taboos and capable now of discernment, why should I follow my mother's finger pointing at Dauda Dean, still a bachelor but too mature for my 18 years? Working as an African doctor at a polyclinic, he was well-to-do and knew how to use his position to advantage. His villa, perched on a rock on the Corniche facing the sea, was the meeting place for the young elite. Nothing was missing, from the refrigerator containing its pleasant drinks to the record player, which exuded sometimes languorous, sometimes frenzied music. Dauda Dean also knew how to win hearts. Useful presents for my mother, ranging from a sack of rice, appreciated in that period of war penury, to the frivolous gifts from me, daintily wrapped in paper and tied with ribbons, but I preferred the man in the eternal khaki suit. Our marriage was celebrated without diary, under the disapproving looks of my father, before the painful indignation of my frustrated mother, under the sarcasm of my surprised sisters, in our town, struck dumb with astonishment. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA, Chapter 8. Then came your marriage with Mauduba, recently graduated from the African School of Medicine and Pharmacy. A controversial marriage. I can still hear the angry rumors in town. What? A Tukule marrying a goldsmith's daughter? He would never make money. Maudu's mother is a Diofeni, a Galewa from the Sene. What an insult to her before her co-wives. Maudu's father was dead. In the desire to marry a short skirt come what may, this is what one gets. Scholars turn our girls into devils who lure our men away from the right path. And I haven't recounted all, but Maudu remained firm. Marriage is a personal thing, he retorted to anyone who cared to listen. He emphasized his total commitment to his choice of life partner by visiting your father, not at home, but at his workplace. He will return from his outings illuminated, happy to have moved in the right direction. He will say triumphantly. He will speak of your father as a creative artist. He admired the man, weakened as he was, by the daily dose of carbon dioxide inhaled working in the acrid atmosphere of the dusty fumes. Gold is his medium, which he melts, pours, twists, flattens, refines, chases. You should see him, Maudu would add. You should see him breathe over the flame. His cheeks will swell with the life from his lungs. This life will animate the flame, sometimes red, sometimes blue, which will rise or curve, wax or wane at his command, depending on what the work demanded. And the gold specks in the showers of red sparks, and the uncouth song of his apprentices, punctuating the stroking of the hammers here, and the pressure of the hands on the billow there, will make bypassers turn round. I said to, your father knew all the rights that protect the working of gold, the metal of genes. Each profession has its code, known only by the initiated and transmitted from father to son. As soon as your elder brothers left the heart of the circumcised, they move into this particular world, the whole compound source of nourishment. What about your younger brothers? Their steps were directed towards the white man's school. Hard is the climb up the steel hill of knowledge to the white man's school. Kindergarten remains a luxury that only those who are financially sound can offer their young ones. Yet, it is necessary, for this is what sharpens and channels the young one's attention and sensibility. Even though primary schools are rapidly increasing, access to them has not become any easier. They leave out in the streets an impressive number of children because of their lack of places. Entrance into secondary school is no panacea for the child at an age fraught with the problems of consolidating his personality, with the explosion of puberty, with the discovery of the various pitfalls, drugs, vagrancy, sensuality. The university has its own large number of despairing rejects. What will the unsuccessful do? Apprenticeship to traditional craft seems degrading to whoever has the slightest book learning. The dream is to become a clerk. The trowel is spent. The horde of the jobless swells a flood of delinquency. Should we have been happy at the desertion of the forges, the workshops, the shoemaker's shop? Should we have rejoiced so wholeheartedly? Were we not beginning to witness the disappearance of an elite of traditional manual workers? Eternal questions of our eternal debates. We all agreed that much dismantling was needed to introduce modernity within our traditions. Torn between the past and the present, we deplored the hard sweat that would be inevitable. We counted the possible losses, but we knew that nothing would be as before. We were full of nostalgia, but were resolutely progressive. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA, Chapter 9. Maudu raised you up to his own level. He, the son of a princess, and you, a child from the fortress. His mother's rejection did not frighten him. Our lives developed in parallel. We experienced the sifts and reconciliations of married life. In our different ways, we suffered the social constraints and heavy burden of custom. I loved Mutu. I compromised with his people. I tolerated his sisters, who too often would desert their own homes and encumber my own. They allowed themselves to be fed and petted. They would look on without reacting as their children ramped around my chairs. I tolerated their spitting, the phlegm expertly secreted under my carpet. His mother would stop by again and again while on her outings, always flanked by different friends, just to show off her son's social success, but particularly so that they might see, at close quarters, her supremacy in this beautiful house in which she did not live. I will receive her with all the respect due to a queen, and she will leave satisfied, especially if her hand closed over the banknotes I had carefully placed there. But hardly would she be out than she would think of the new band of friends she would soon be dazzling. Mother's father was more understanding. More often than not, he would visit us without sitting down. He would accept a glass of cold water and would leave after repeating his prayers for the protection of the house. I knew how to smile at them all and consented to wasting useful time in futile chatters. My sisters-in-law believed me spared of the drudgery of housework. With your two housemaids, they will say with emphasis, try explaining to them that a working woman is no less responsible for a home. Try explaining to them that nothing is done if you do not step in, that you have to see to everything, do everything all over again, cleaning up, cooking, ironing. There are the children to be washed, the husband to be looked after. The working woman has a dual task, of which both halves, equally odious, must be reconciled. How does one go about this? Therein lies the skill that makes all the difference at home. Some of my sisters-in-law did not envy my way of living at all. They saw me dashing around the house after a hard day at school. They appreciated their comfort, their peace of mind, their moments of leisure, and allowed themselves to be looked after by their husbands who were crushed under their duties. Others, limited in their own ways of thinking, envied my comfort and purchasing power. They would go into raptures over the many gadgets in my house: gas cooker, vegetable grater, sugar tongs. They forgot the source of this easy life. First up in the morning, last to go to bed, always working. You, I said to, you forsook your family-in-law, tightly shut with their head dignity. You will lament to me. Your family-in-law respect you. You must treat them well. As for me, they look down on me from the height of their lost nobility. What can I do? While Maud's mother planned her revenge, we lived. Christmas Eve parties, organized by several couples, with a shared cost equally, and we held in tents in the different homes. Without self-consciousness, we revived the dances of yesteryear, the lively begin, frenzied rumba, languid tangos. We rediscovered the old beating of hearts that strengthened our feelings. We will also leave the stifling city to breathe in the hairy air of the seaside suburbs. We'll walk along the Corniche, one of the most beautiful in West Africa, a sheer work of art wrought by nature. Rounded or pointed rocks, black or ochre-colored, overlooking the ocean. Greenery, sometimes a veritable hanging garden spread out under the clear sky. We will go on to the road of Wakam, which also led to Ngo, and further on to Wye-Off airports. We will recognize on the way the narrow road leading further on the Almandis beach. Our favorite spot was Ngo Beach, situated near the village of the same name, where old bearded fishermen repaired their nets under the silk cotton trees. Naked and snotty children played in complete freedom when they were not frolicking about in the sea. On the fine sand, washed by the waves and swollen with water, naively painted canoes awaited their turn to be launched into the waters. In their hollow small pools of blue water would glisten, full of light from the sky and sun. What a crowd on public holidays! Numerous families would stroll about, thirsty for a space and fresh air. People would undress without embarrassment, tempted by a benevolent caress of the iodized breeze and the warmth of the sun rays. The idle would sleep under the spread parasols. A few children, spade and buckets in hand, would build and demolish the castles of their imagination. In the evening, the fishermen would return from their laborious outings. Once more, they had escaped from the moving snare of the sea. At first, simple points of the horizon, the boats would become more distinct from one another. As they drew nearer, they would dance in the hollows of the waves, then would lazily let themselves be dragged along. Fishermen would gaily furl their sails and draw in their tackle, while some of them would gather together the wriggling catch. Others would wring out their soaked clothes and mop their faces. Under the wondering gaze of the kids, the live fish would flip up as the long sea snake would curve themselves inward. There is nothing more beautiful than a fish just out of water, its eye clear and fresh, with golden or silvery scales and beautiful gleamish glints. Hands will sort out, group, divide. We will buy a good selection at bargain prices for the house. The sea air will put us in good humor. The pleasure we indulged in, and in which all our senses rejoice, will intoxicate both rich and poor with health. Our communion with deep, bottomless, and unlimited nature refreshed our souls. Depression and sadness will disappear, suddenly be replaced by feelings of plenitude and expansiveness. Reinvigorated, we'll set out for home. How jealously we guarded the secret of simple pleasures, health-giving remedy for the daily tensions of life. Do you remember the picnics we organized at Sangalkam? In the farm Maldubai inherited from his father, Sangalkam remains a refuge of people from Dhaka, those who want a break from the frenzy of the city. The younger set in particular has bought land there and built country residences. These green open spaces are conducive to rest, meditation, and letting off or seen by children. The oasis lies on the road of Rufisky. Maldo's mother had looked after the farm before her son's marriage. The memory of her husband has made her attached to this plot of land, where their joint and patient hands had disciplined the vegetation that filled her eyes with admiration. Yourself, you added a small building at the far end, 3 small simple bedrooms, a bathroom, a kitchen. You had a hen run built, then a close pen for sheep. Coconut trees, with their interlacing leaves, gave protection from the sun. Succulent sapodilla stood next to the sweet-smelling pomegranates. Heavy mangoes weighed down the branches. Pawpaws, resembling breasts of different shapes, hung tempting and inaccessible from the tops of elongated trunks. Green leaves and brown leaves, new grass and weighted grass were strewn all over the ground. Under our feet, the ants untiringly built and rebuilt their homes. How warm the shades over the camp beds. Teams of games were formed, one after the other, amidst cries of victory or lamentation of defeat. And we starved ourselves with fruits within easy reach, and we drank the milk from the coconuts, and we told juicy stories, and we danced about, roused by strident notes of gramophone. And the lamb, seasoned with white pepper, garlic, butter, hot pepper, would be roasting over the wood fire. And we lived, and we stood in front of our overcrowded classes. We represented a force in the enormous efforts to be accomplished in order to overcome ignorance. Each profession, intellectual or manual, deserves consideration, whether it requires painful physical efforts or manual dexterity, wide knowledge or patience of an ant. Ours, like that of the doctor, does not allow any mistake. You don't joke with life, and life is both body and soul. To warp a soul is as much a sacrilege as murder. Teachers, at kindergarten level, As at the university level, form a noble army, accomplishing daily feats, never praised, never decorated, an army forever on the move, forever vigilant, an army without drums, without gleaming uniforms. This army, swatting trumps and snares, everywhere plants the flag of knowledge and morality. How we love this priesthood, humble teachers in humble local schools, how faithfully we served our profession, and how we spent ourselves in order to do with honor. Like all apprentices, we had learned how to practice it well at a demonstration school, a few steps away from our own, where experienced teachers taught the novices that we were how to apply, in the lesson we gave, our knowledge of psychology and method. In those children, we set in motion waves that, breaking, carried away in their fall a bit of ourselves. So Long a Letter by MARIAMA. Chapter 10. Modo rose steadily to the top rank in the trade union organizations. His understanding of people and things endeared him to both employers and workers. He focused his efforts on points that were easily satisfied, that made work lighter and life more pleasant. He sought practical improvements in workers' conditions. His slogan was, "What's the use of taunting with the impossible? Obtaining the possible is already a victory." His point of view was not unanimously accepted, but people relied on his practical realism. Maudo could take part in neither trade unionism nor politics, for he hadn't the time. His reputation as a good doctor was growing. He remained a prisoner of his mission in the hospital, filled to capacity with the sick. For people were going less and less to the native doctor, who specialized in brewing the same concoctions of leaves for different illnesses. Everybody was reading newspapers and magazines. There was unrest in North Africa. The interminable discussions, during which points of view concurred or clashed, complemented each other, or were vanquished, determined the aspects of New Africa. The assimilationist dream of the colonialists drew into its crucible our mood of thought and way of life. The sun helmet won over the natural protection of our kinky hair, smoke-filled pipes in our mouths, white shorts just above the calves, very short dresses displaying shapely legs, a whole generation suddenly becoming aware of the ridiculous situation festering in our midst. History marched on inexorably. The debate over the right path to take shook West Africa. Brave men went to prison. Others, following their footsteps, continued the work begun. It was the privilege of our generation to be the link between two periods in our history, one of domination, the other of independence. We remained young and efficient, for we were the messengers of a new design. With independence achieved, we witnessed the birth of a republic, the birth of an anthem, and the implantation of a flag. I heard people repeat that all the active forces in the country should be mobilized, and we said that over and above the unavoidable option for such and such a party, such and such a model of society, what was needed was national unity. Many of us rallied around the dominant party, infusing in it new blood. To be productive in the crowd was better than crossing one's arm and hiding behind imported ideologies. Modo, a practical man, led his unions into collaboration with the government, demanding for his troops only what was possible. But he cursed the hasty establishment of too many embassies, which he judged to be too costly for our underdeveloped country. This bleeding of the country for reasons of pure vanity, among other things, such as the frequent invitation of foreigners, was just a waste of money. And, with his wage earners in mind, he would repeatedly ground so many schools, or so much hospital equipment loss, so many monthly wage increases, so many charge roads. You and Maudo would listen to him. You were scaling the heights, but your mother-in-law, who saw your resplendent beside her son, who saw her son going more and more frequent to your father's workshop, who saw your mother filled out and dressed better, your mother-in-law thought more and more of her revenge.